Hi, this is Valerie. I've recorded this is the fourth time. So I'm a little bit tired and I'm losing the light. It's a nice sunny day here in the Bay Area. I'm not going to reveal my location. So anyway, according to my son, I need to be discreet. So this is Valerie, Chicanamama. This program is called Drawing on Spirit, and I plan for it to be an interview program where I interview artists and other creative people to find out where creativity comes from, where they think creativity comes from. And I plan on interviewing all kinds of different creatives and putting it on this channel and sharing it with the world. So I've devised a set of questions to start with. This is just my interview. I expect that the questions may change over time and depending on who I interview. So the first question is, describe your work, intentions and goals, and what do you hope to communicate with the viewer or the observer? So I think my work has evolved over time, and I think that a vocabulary itself makes it difficult to talk about art. I think that good art or art that you like generally elicits a feeling deep inside. I think factually, if you were to describe my work, it's figurative. It's recognizable as something. I use really bright colors, complementary colors placed next to each other so that each color pops. Many of my pieces are of the human face or form, and I like to mirror the life that we live, and all its excitement and challenges and experiences. I paint dancers, and I paint a lot of faces. For instance, I have a Chingona series where I paint faces that look like mine, brown faces, women of color, women, Latinas. And in those, I think I'm trying to create the complexity of emotion that happens that shows up on your face. Question number 2. At what point did you become aware that you were creative? That's been over my entire life that I've felt creative. But this is messed up. Second grade, a teacher wrote home to my mom to tell her that she thought I was talented. But my opinion on talent now as an adult is that talent equals passion plus practice. And I write about that in Chicanamama in my notes, in my pages. I have a little article about that. And that's why I think that we shouldn't be too quick to say, I think there is talent everywhere, and that we should point out passion too. We should give credit to, wow, you're passionate about that. You're really involved. It doesn't mean you're good at it, but with practice you can be. Your skills build. So in 4th grade, I had to do a report, a book report, and in that report I included a picture, and it was a picture of a book with legs and hands and a face, and kind of animated, because as a kid I did a lot of cartoons. So that was probably my first idea where I knew I really enjoyed drawing that book. And in fact, that I probably enjoyed drawing the book more than I enjoyed reading the book at that time. I love to read. But so later in junior high school, I did cartoons for the yearbook. Hold on, I'm going to sit up. A little bit higher there. So I did cartoons for the yearbook, and then I, later in high school, to tell you the truth, I've always lived a creative life. I've always been able to pull it in. Like I can remember specifically in high school when I used to talk to people, I would look at their face, look at their eyes, look at, whatever it was, however it was that I was talking to them, and I would be drawing them. I mean, I would follow with my eyes the curve of their nose and the shadow on their face, or whatever it was that I was noticing. I'd be drawing it in my head. That's kind of a strange way to exist, but that's how it was. So even with music, I listen to music, and I'm deciding on my dance moves. I'm choreographing the music in my head. I'm not listening to music. I'm actively thinking about the moves that I'd make when I'm listening to the music. That's another strange kind of thing. I didn't even think about that. But so I probably have always lived creatively. I think as an adult too, I solve problems in my life creatively as well. So number 3, how did you feed that creativity, and were there others around you who supported that creativity? So yes, once my mother was notified by this teacher in 2nd grade, she gave, my mom constantly bought, she always made sure that I had pencils, paper, pastels, and Robert Frost books. No, Frost. Is it Frost? No, Forrester. Maybe it's Frost. Anyway, there were these books that were published that taught us how to draw cartoons or whatever thing, the human figure, the human face, portraits, whatever, of children, and because children's heads are different. So she kept me well supplied. So like instead of watching TV, I'd draw. I'd go in my room and draw. So the other thing was that my grandmother was creative. I hung around with her a lot. I saw her as someone who made stuff, and somehow it got communicated to me that making stuff was more important, or in other words, if you're going to give a gift to someone, better to make it than to go to the store and buy something for someone, because that meant that much more. It meant it came from your heart. So that's a major tenet in my life. I see creativity and the product of creativity as being heart-centered work. Number 4, how has your work evolved over time? So I think my skills have improved. I've had the opportunity to show my work. So I've had the opportunity to create more work, and as a result, try out different media and material, and push myself a little bit harder. I'm less judgmental, and with being less judgmental and creating artwork, you lay yourself to be vulnerable in front of other people. And when you do that, I think there's a certain amount of self-acceptance that you just go, if you're not judging yourself, you're accepting yourself, right? So, and because I've had opportunities to create artwork in the Bay Area, Bird Levy is a curator, and she's curated a few shows. I don't know how she found out about me, but she invited me to be in a show, and I was. And also Maria Sanchez, who has a gallery on 19th and Telegraph called Sanchez Contemporary, and they have a little cafe in there. It's this bright, beautiful space, and I participated in some of the group shows. I think that I am more often nudged by spirit to create, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. So number 5, what was your favorite materials and why? So oils, you know, each material has its good side and bad side, and oils are really cool because you can continue to work on them. They remain wet for a long time, for several days. You can constantly go back to your painting and adjust it. And even after it dries, you can paint right on top of it. So watercolor is a medium that is less forgiving and more immediate. The results are more immediate, and it's easy to make them. Let me put it this way. You have to trust watercolors to do their thing. You have to know what the materials do, and you have to in a way, let them do their thing. I think there's less control, for me anyway, as an artist, there's less control with watercolors, and I have to be more accepting of the outcome, whatever it is. I work with inks as well, and I use those on Yupo paper, which is a synthetic paper. And so what you do is you put water down, and then you drip the ink into the water and let it spread. And then as the water evaporates, it leaves just the ink stain. It's really cool. I love that process. And then I use glitter and resin. And with those materials, I love glitter because it's whimsical. It's like magic. It's playful, and it reminds me of the lowriders that I used to see as a teenager in the neighborhood. And I think people who restore cars and the lowriders who dedicate a lifetime to putting together a beautiful piece of art like a car, I think of them as artists too. And so I'm hoping to interview them for the show. A couple of people like that for the show. So in what ways does inspiration show up for you? So I think that I'm inspired by music and dance. And I definitely feel that music, like I'm a conduit for music. Music runs through my body, and then I feel like dancing. So in a sense, my body's an instrument. So I feel music flowing through me. And then after I'm on the dance floor for a little while, the endorphins kick in and I'm in my bliss. And I remember that. So then I go to my easel and paint that feeling, or I try to. And I have a little secret. When I dance, I am getting, not only am I getting visual snapshots of the musicians playing. I mean, I take photographs too, but in my mind, I'm watching the musicians play, but I'm also watching the dancers dance, and I'm watching their legs and feet and the movement. And you'll often find me on the edge of a dance floor dancing by myself, looking at my shadow and studying my shadow and the movements that I make when I dance. And I do that because, in a sense, it's a study on form. So then you'll see one of my paintings, and it actually looks like me dancing. And but I mean, I use reference photos too. But oftentimes, my own body is my reference. So sometimes in the middle of painting, where I have a particular painting in mind, I get an image in my head and I render the image, but then I get an adjustment, like I call it a spiritual download, because I'm being told to change the painting and do something different, or go in another direction, or go with a different color than I had originally planned. And so I may have a plan in place, and then I start doing it, and boom, I change my mind. But I don't look at it as changing my mind. I don't look at it as necessarily a conscious understanding that I'm thinking it through and I'm going to change this. I really feel it comes from spirit. I think amazing when that happens and a painting changes direction when I didn't plan on it. Those are really happy changes. A complete calmness comes over me, and it's like this deep inside knowing that what I'm doing, or whatever change I'm making, is the right change. It's like an understanding with myself that, sorry, I was sitting on my leg. It's like a knowing, a trust in myself that I know that this is the right change to make. So what would you say inspiration is at its core? So, Rhett, I really think that connecting with your creativity is like connecting with God, the Holy Spirit, your spirit guides, your ancestors, my grandmother, my mother now. And, connecting with all that source inside of me. And it's guiding me toward a soulful evolution. Through art, it's guiding me toward understanding myself and towards loving more and away from fear. I think I hear God with every painting. If a viewer looks at my work and pays for it and gives me money for it and then takes it into their home, that's an energy exchange. An exchange of money for the painting is an energy exchange. They put it in their home, and that's energy too. And they're connecting with that soul level of what I painted. So their soul is connecting with mine, and I think that's a good thing because it's all love. And hopefully we'll hear from some of my patrons who purchased my work. Maybe they put the comments down in the comments section, and there can be a discussion about what happened when they took a piece of artwork into their home, in particular mine. But when I post other artists' interviews, hopefully there'll be just that kind of discussion on how it felt to own a piece of artwork and how connected it or happy it makes someone and on what level. But I think creating is a direct connection to the love inside of us and is from God. And I think it's letting go of fear. So give an example of when inspiration entered into your creative space and provided you with direction. So I made a painting a couple of years ago. I was getting ready for a big art show, Chingona Revolution, at the Sanchez Contemporary. And I was really excited about this art show because I had thought about it a whole year before we even started planning it. And all my work was already created. Even I had already started creating this type of work. And it was important for me to bring forward and to bring into the public eye. So I was creating this painting. I tried to mount the watercolor onto wood. Do I have a picture of what that looks like? Oh yeah, here. So for instance, this is a watercolor paper. I mounted it on a wood panel and then I covered it with resin. And that was what I was going to do. So in fact, this image is the copy of the original that I ruined. So what happened was I tried to mount it on wood, and I used decoupage, which is a kind of a glue, and you paint on the bottom of it, you paint on the top of it, and you bray it down or smash it down. And when I was doing that, I tried to move it around and I couldn't. It was already starting to dry, and I tore it. And man, I really tore it. had a head in one hand and a body in the other hand. So I threw it down on the floor, and it remained all curled up underneath a pile of mess that I was, because there's a lot of trash when you're creating artwork too. And so anyway, I create in my living room, and so it was on the floor in the living room for a couple of months. Finally, when I got to that pile and went through each and every paper, I found the painting, and I decided, I swear to God, I almost threw that image away twice. And I said, no, I'm going to keep it longer. I'm going to keep it longer. And then finally, I picked it up a few months after the show, and I decided to cut out the figure. So like this, I cut the figure out, and then I mounted it on another board, painted that, and then I did some spray. I wanted it to look like a graffitied kind of background, like a wall. And then I solicited help from people on my Chicanamama page, and they helped me with placas, names from the neighborhood, and I drew placas all over the background, and then I had mounted her on there. And then the figure, she was much like this. The figure, to me, looks like the Virgin Mary, that shape. So that's where I got the idea to draw roses around her. And then I think there was some stuff here on the edges or something where I ruined it. So it wasn't a clean edge or whatever. And so I wanted to hide that. So I did it with the roses. But I didn't like the way I painted roses. So I went and cut out a bunch of black and white. I printed a bunch of black and white roses off of Pinterest and glued them all down. And then I painted on top of those. And then I put a load of resin on it and some glitter. And then I painted on top of that, put another load of resin, and then painted on top of that. So I built it up, and it's very dimensional. You can see into it. So that creation or construct was an example of me listening to my inner guidance and following through and just not quitting, just letting it go. And to tell you the truth, when I first put it on a board, I thought to myself, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? I end up having to sand the image off and use the board. You know, what's the big deal? Let me try and see how far I can take it. And to me, honestly, the name of that painting is called Phoenix Rising, and I'll put a photo of it underneath in the comments. But me, it's one of my most successful paintings because I let caution go to the wind, and I continued on with, just pushing forward. 10. Is there, oh, no. Yeah, no, 9. How do you make space for creativity or hold space in your life? So, definitely listening to music and getting out into the music and listening to it. Taking walks in nature, being close to nature. I have my favorite tree out by Crab Cove that I go and visit because I think it's just the most beautiful tree. I got to go out and draw it sometime. But I've taken lots of pictures of it. And I talk to it too. Because it's just so beautiful. But anyway, I don't let myself get bombarded by too much TV. In fact, I only have Netflix and Amazon, and I don't really watch daily TV or listen to the news on the way into work because news is horrible. And I don't want to hear that. And it's not that I want to exist in a bubble or anything like that. I know crap is going on, but I just would rather stay away from it. At one time, I think of all this stuff as a sort of grounding. And at one time, this all wasn't necessary. But right now in my life, I want peace and relaxation and serenity. So that's how I make, and creativity is part of that, but I've got to make room for that creativity by getting rid of all the excess radio waves and garbage out there. You know, I don't want to listen to all the rest of that stuff. And is there a language you have developed to talk about your work? How do you find the work do you find the work speaks for itself? Or do you find a need to explain yourself? When I first started showing my work, I could not go to the art shows. I was painting images of my people, and I felt a little unapologetic for it, and I didn't want to have to explain it. It just was. And I felt, why should I have to tell somebody what it is and why I painted it? I painted a Latina because that's what I am. And why should I have to explain it? I think I was angry, but, and I'm still painting Latinas and women of color. And I'm a little more patient with people. Maybe that's it. But I think any artwork should elicit an emotional response. You know, maybe make you feel tranquil, at ease, loving, you know. So, and actually, the most satisfying conversation I can have at an art show is when someone's looking at my work. And I do come up to people when they're looking at my work and ask them, what is it that you see? And they tell me, and the best thing is when they tell me exactly what I was trying to communicate. They'll tell me, oh, I feel the joy in that dance. It just looks like so much fun. It makes me feel happy, energized. And I go, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to communicate. That's what I was trying to make you feel, because that's what I was feeling. So that is, to me, is the ultimate connection with another person's soul. How does inspiration or creativity, spirit, muse interfere with the basic laws of the material you work with? So basically every medium has its limitations. And sometimes creativity, your muse, source, God, is telling you to use the materials in a different way. And you can't. So sometimes you ruin some paintings. But I'm not saying that source is wrong or listening to it is wrong. But what I'm saying is that sometimes not all paintings are meant to be sold. So sometimes there's value in creating and making mistakes. And unfortunately, occasionally you run up against a block with regards to the material. How does it feel to follow the creative path or spirit intuition, describe the feeling? So I think that being creative and being in touch with that button right there is trance-like, and have the ability, it gives you the ability to see everything around you and to see more clearly, and to see what you're working on in a hyper focus. So it makes my heart beat fast, my pulse quickens. When I get an idea like that, it's like a jolt through my body. It's like, oh, I got to do this. And, you know, I pick up the color, I pick up the paintbrush or whatever it is however it is that I'm changing to do it, you know, I get to it. And it's electric. It feels good. So, and when I think about it, you know, time goes by fast, and it's like I'm being held in the arms of God. It's like an all trusting in yourself, trusting in what it is that you're doing. It's an awesome feeling. And it's the only time in life where I'm absolutely sure that in that moment, what it is that I'm doing, committing to the process, not necessarily to the outcome, but to the process, I am present in that moment and blissed out. That's all I can explain. So, what would you say to someone who may be seeking to create or tap into that inspirational spirit or spot? You know, I would say start today. You know, there's art books to read. There's, you know, in my case, I'm a visual artist, so there's art shows to go to and be inspired by, and artists to talk to, and there's all kinds of artists. Not everyone dresses in black and, you know, stands in the corner and doesn't talk to you. I mean, that's a myth. That's a stereotype. So I would say that creativity makes your life, you know, listening to that creativity, it's always there. You just have to listen to it. You just have to open up to it. I would say no matter the medium, no matter what it is you're choosing to do, commit the time to hone your skills, and each day or each week do something creative. Understand that connecting to spirit is a necessary part of being human, and that by connecting to spirit and living your life with this abundant knowing of who you are, and that's connected to God, you heal yourself and you heal the planet. More and more people that open up to this life of creating are probably happier. Well, I don't know. There's some challenges to being artistic. Certainly, there's some challenges in any part of life that you live, in anything, in jobs or family or whatever. You've got challenges, but I would say that's the only part of my life that works, you know? So anyway, so this is the first episode of Drawing on Spirit, and I will be interviewing artists, musicians, chefs, lowriders over the next few months, and we'll see where this goes. And I hope that it gives you insight and interest to create yourself and connect with an artist community that's large here in the Bay Area. And we all need a little bit of love, and that's a way, and that's the way we can connect and experience that. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your time and effort. Bye. Stop video.